Recently, the security industry has seen a long overdue and accelerated adoption of authentication applied to enterprise applications. This is an immensely powerful tool, providing a robust first layer of protection. All too often, however, organizations stop short and ignore that such application authentication services are only one method of protection in what should be a multi-layer strategy. Such an oversight can lead to disaster when the application itself has an authentication vulnerability. Such attacks are growing increasingly common and are at the core of recent announcements of exploits targeting Microsoft Exchange and F5 Big IP. Akamai CTO Charlie Garrow explains what organizations can do to protect themselves against this family of attacks and others by applying principles of defense in depth to authentication itself.
In the past, many organizations placed critical assets such as servers, printers, databases, and more behind a firewall co-located with their end users. This walled-off approach ensured that only end users with physical proximity to the network assets could access them. More and more often, however, users are beginning to leave the confines of the branch office and work remotely. This is especially true in a COVID-19 world, where many enterprises have 0 employees within their branch offices. In this regime, many enterprises have begun to move critical internal assets like Microsoft Exchange from behind the firewall out into their DMZ. This is where that false assumption from earlier becomes such a problem. Many administrators falsely assume that the strong authentication afforded to them by the application solely is enough. Functionally, when their external users wish to access an asset, they simply connect directly to it over the network and log in. However, when a vulnerability is discovered that allows bypass of the local application authentication, malicious users also can reach the very same systems over the network and deliver their exploit payloads. The proper solution to this is to utilize defense in depth with authentication. Zero Trust Network Access systems attempt to do just that. Akamai Enterprise Application Access, or EAA, is one such system that allows the additional tying of authentication information to the network level. Let's observe how this works. In the EAA model, a user installs a virtual appliance behind their firewall known as a connector. This virtual appliance makes an outbound connection to a special machine on the Akamai network called the rendezvous node. This establishes a strong pairing between the connector appliance and the rendezvous node, where no network packets can be delivered locally without authentication first occurring at the rendezvous node. Only once a user has been strongly authenticated, the security risk they present assessed, and authorization granted, can packets flow through the tightly bound tunnel to the application. Once reaching the application, additional authentication occurs. However, in general, this is silent and invisible to the end user. As such, for employees, there is no perceived difference in their access. Malicious users, however, are unable to authenticate to the network, and thus can never bypass the authentication at the application, as they simply cannot reach it or even see the service in question in the first place. Now, in order to exercise the same exploit, they must bypass authentication for both the network and the application. This is what we mean by defense in depth. In effect, the presence of a zero trust system reduces the threat surface from the entire world to just an enterprise's employees. But this isn't the only place where defense in depth can be applied. It is possible to reduce the threat surface even more from all enterprise users to only well-behaved ones. Employees can themselves be malicious, or more often than not, can be exploited by other malicious parties through credential theft or malware installation. In those cases, Akamai recommends the use of a web application firewall, or WAF, such as that provided by Akamai's Kona product. Shortly after vulnerabilities are discovered, the unique signatures of the attacks are added to our WAF. By layering our WAF on top of your zero trust system, it can inspect all transactions from your internal users. If a user attempts to deliver the exploit payload, they will be blocked, providing an even greater threat reduction and allowing patch installation times to be extended. While authentication at the application is an absolute must-have, we hope that this presentation was informative around the strategy of defense in depth. why it is so crucial, and how attacks like the Microsoft Exchange and F5 Big IP exploits can be largely avoided through the use of a strong zero trust system, especially one tightly coupled to a web application firewall.